Let me see if I can explain this to you the way I understand it. Okay, so the civil rights movement was not specifically about integrating us into YT society. Yes, that was a result of the civil rights movement, but that was not the core goal of the civil rights movement. The core goal of the civil rights movement was to dismantle Jim Crow. Jim Crow were laws enforced by the southern states to strip black Americans of their constitutional rights. The civil rights movement and figures like Dr. Martin Luther King wanted to check that shit. They had us fucked up. During Jim Crow, black people were subjected to racial terrorism. They were putting us in trees. They were setting us ablaze. They were tying us to horses and then, yes, that sort of terrorism is what the civil rights movement and Dr. Martin Luther King wanted to check. They used strategies targeting Jim Crow laws so that they could get an audience in front of a federal judge, like when you would see them trying to integrate lunch counters. They knew they would be arrested. They knew they would go to jail. They knew they would have to go to state court, and they knew the state courts would uphold the conviction. However, they would appeal it to get an audience with a federal judge who had no choice but to acknowledge their constitutional rights. It was a strategy. And I understand a lot of people, they don't like the civil rights movement because they said that it crippled us economically. So, with Jim Crow laws and segregation, we were only allowed to buy and sell from a small group of Americans, black Americans, Negroes. Jim Crow was crippling you. Dr. Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement tried to check that shit. They never told black people to stop practicing group economics. That was a result of the civil rights movement. Dr. Martin Luther King and the nonviolent movement that he had going on, I wasn't a big fan of it. I thought negative things about it at one point too. However, I saw Dr. King speak about it, and it made me understand something. I can't do what he did. This man went to places where they told him if he would come, they would unalive him. And he went. That's just like standing at the barrel of a pew pew and somebody tell you to take another step. He was going to take that step. Would you? Segregation and Jim Crow was more than just you live over there and I'm going to live over here. It was massive unalivings of our people. It was racial terrorism. And that's what the civil rights movement core goal was to fight. Because at the end of the day, it was going unpunished. It was unchecked and unpunished unalivings all the time. Do you know how many people our 48 million would have right now if it wasn't for the events that happened during Reconstruction? Do you know how many people we lost during that time out of jealousy and hate? That's what the civil rights movement was trying to check, to stop that from happening. So when you be saying, oh, I wish we could go back to segregation, we didn't have equal protection under the laws. And that was the focus. We wanted, our ancestors wanted for us, equal protection under the law.